Wow. I mean, what a terrible game that was. How disgraceful. I mean, geez Louise. That was a. I don't even know what to say. Honestly, I think I'm irritated because I was convinced that it could be a high scoring game and that the Dolphins, because of the home field advantage and the weather being on their side, would put up good fantasy options. And I guess there was some good fantasy production in there, but just from a watchability standpoint, that was terrible. I mean, honestly, I mean, Dolphins fans summed it up. Honestly, I think the best part of the night was easily watching Dolphins fans just like be utterly distraught of how bad their team was playing in this game. I mean, paper bags over the heads of Dolphins fans. Someone had a popcorn bucket over their heads. Like it was, there was some good stuff there from Dolphins fans tonight. There's definitely plenty that I was wrong on in this game. It was pretty disgraceful from the Dolphins side. And we'll get into all that. Just make sure to drop a like in the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. But yeah, I mean, let's just start out with the Ravens. Get the good out of the way so I can absolutely eviscerate the Dolphins here. So Lamar Jackson, first game back, does well. I mean, he did great from a football perspective. In fantasy football, it was a good day. Not going to be his best though. The one thing I did mention about Lamar Jackson was I was a little concerned with his first game back, being that it was going to be in a game where, he's just a mobile quarterback, right? So it's like Matt Stafford having a hamstring injury, it's not the same as Lamar Jackson having a hamstring injury, right? So, like, they're just two different things. And I think when you have a mobile quarterback like Lamar, you want him to be as like it's hard for him to operate on a bad hammy. And I think tonight you kind of just saw him be a little more hesitant. Like there were certain plays that I do think that it was impacting him and the way that he could move, which typically he has no limitations. But there were certain like moves that I just think that he couldn't make. And so that only accounted for 14 rushing yards. He had one big run, and that was basically it for Lamar Jackson. So again, it's not going to be his best. It's not going to be his best week because the rushing upside just wasn't there. But I will say this: I do think that Lamar, if this is a floor game, this is obviously greatness. I mean, I don't have to convince you that Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson, right? Like Lamar Jackson is fantastic, but I'm really happy that he threw 4 touchdowns because that raises his ceiling in a big, big way. I mean, we could see some big Lamar Jackson games moving forward for the rest of the year, and he could become kind of a league winner if your team was able to salvage the weeks that you did not have him. Derrick Henry came back, had a much better day in real life than he did in fantasy. His fantasy day was okay. I mean, it's not going to crush you or anything like that. One catch for 2 yards, and he had 19 carries for 119. Really, what we saw is what I've been saying for a while now with Henry is that you're going to see that Derrick Henry is going to have these big explosion type of weeks when they are able to drain the clock. That is when Derrick Henry is at his best. If they have a lead and they're able to just run the ball consistently down the field, that will be Derrick Henry's big moment. So I do still think that personally, when I look at this, I think to myself, good things ahead. Because Derrick Henry, his best runs and his best moments were as the defense was wearing down in the second half. So I have no issues with this lower night from Derrick Henry. Obviously not ideal, but just take solace in the fact that he averaged 6.3 a carry and he ran for basically 120 yards. And that the Ravens are back to blowing out teams. Because that's really the important piece here to remember is that they're going to get in more games like this where they're going to blow teams out. And Henry's going to be a dominant fantasy asset. He'll get in the end zone. That's not going to be a problem. I mean, he should have been in there tonight. He just got stopped at the goal line a couple times. So I think Derrick Henry is a fantastic fantasy asset moving forward. And the only thing I'll mention, I usually don't go through comments on this video, but somebody, Masab123, just said, should I try and trade for Henry? It's actually not a bad idea because someone may be disappointed from the night tonight and think to themselves, is this the best I'm going to get? So I would try to come in there, sell off a Kyron Williams for him or something like that, and try to see if I could get him. The receiving game, obviously, Zay Flowers was. I said this, a couple times this week, which is that the only problem with him is that his ceiling is much higher with Lamar, but his floor is lower. Now Zay was actually like this close to having a big touchdown on one of his plays in the game. He got caught, I think, probably like 8 or 5 yards short of the goal line. Just someone from behind got his feet. And should have been a much bigger night for Zay, but this actually this has been kind of on par with what he's been getting from the backup quarterbacks, which is Zay Flowers is a very playable guy, and he's been hitting floor games, and that's kind of encouraging to me personally. Is that we've had about a month now of where Zay Flowers' floor is not like it used to be. Zay Flowers' floor, I mean, that used to be like 2 catches for 15 yards. That's not his floor anymore. His floor is kind of turning into 4 for 40 and 5 for 60. Like, that's kind of what his floor is turning into. So, Zay's going to have a big game one of these weeks, and it's going to be awesome. And I think it could be upwards of 25 fantasy points because he already did it once this year, and they're going to continue to beat their opponents. If you look at they put a graphic up towards the end of that game tonight showing the Ravens' schedule moving forward, and I mean, it's cake. So they're going to have a lot more games where they're going to be in plus matchups, and they're going to be able to move the ball on the opposing defenses. I like Zay. Like, Zay to me is still a buy low guy, actually. Isaiah Likely, look out, man. I mean, the Ravens tight ends, they're in play. 100% in play moving forward. Isaiah Likely, a couple huge plays down the field. That's where he does the most of his damage. Andrews still remains the red zone guy. And I said this on the tight end rankings today, kind of been saying it for the past couple of weeks. The moment that Lamar gets back, I think both these tight ends are very much in play. Andrews is more in play today, and I would say that this was a good start for what we could see with Isaiah Likely, because keep in mind, when Lamar was playing at the beginning of the year, they didn't have Likely. Likely was dealing with an ankle injury. So now that Likely is back in the fold and Lamar is back in the fold, this is the first game we've seen with both those guys, and it went for 3 for 60. Not a bad week if you actually just started Isaiah Likely, which I can't imagine more than 2% of the fantasy population did that. But I'm just saying, from a waiver wire perspective, this is going to be a big play tight end. Isaiah Likely is going to have 20-point games. He will. Because Lamar loves his tight ends. That's just how it goes, man. I mean, even Charlie Kolar got 2 catches for 23 yards and a touchdown. Charlie Kolar has done that the past couple of years or so. He's involved on a once-in-a-blue-moon basis, so it's nothing for fantasy football that you can expect moving forward, but I do think that, sometimes it's just kind of a thorn in the side of either Andrews or Likely. But, I mean, Andrews, again, he got in the end zone twice tonight, only had 2 catches. This is going to be the downfield not downfield threat, but red zone threat. Like, anytime they're inside the 20-yard line, Mark Andrews is heavily in play. That's just what they do. So Mark Andrews, I started him in one of my leagues tonight, ended up feeling really good. And again, that's not even the biggest game that Andrews will have. Andrews is going to have 20-plus point games easily, and I think Likely will as well. So I do think that Ravens tight ends, man, stock is way up with Lamar Jackson back in the fold. Bateman catches a touchdown. That's just kind of what happens sometimes. Either Bateman's going to get a touchdown or D-Hop, or in some games, probably both of them will get one, but they're both still just big play threats that can't really be relied upon. Now let's look at the Dolphins, man. Disgusting. Disgusting work. I was texting my group chat in my Dynasty League tonight, and I was like, is it the night? Is tonight the night that Mike McDaniel gets fired after this game? And honestly, I record all these live streams. The video is on my phone. And so, I can see if an alert pops up, it'll pop up while I'm recording this. So I'm, casually just kind of watching to see if I get the breaking news alert that Mike McDaniel gets canned. Because, this was so gutless, man. I mean, it really was. If you didn't watch the game, and I don't blame you if you didn't. If this wasn't my job to watch the games, this was a tough one to watch. I mean, it was fun on one hand, kind of watching Lamar in his first game back, because I really like to watch Lamar do well. Even though I'm a Steelers fan, I enjoy watching good football, and Lamar is good football. He just is. And so, it was not a fun game to watch. especially if you're a Dolphins fan. And it was so gutless because the Dolphins at one point, I mean, they had the Ravens. Like, they should have actually been winning that game. And they were, I mean, Mike McDaniel actually said it coming out at halftime. Like, we can't beat two teams. We can't beat two teams at once. And he was basically referring to the fact that they were shooting themselves in the foot time and time again in that first half. And then the dam broke in the second half, and their defense broke. Because their defense actually was getting after Lamar. They were stopping the run. They were actually looking good, but the Ravens defense obviously is going to be the much better fantasy play of the night tonight. And good God, for people that played Tua, ugh, I feel horrible. I want to make it clear I did not have him inside my top 16, but anybody who was out of my top 16, Tua was like right there at the top. I mean, I really liked the Tua play because, again, what we had seen from the Ravens defense up to this point was so bad. And the Thursday night factor, it really just kicked in for me. And I mean, I should have just, like, this is like an easy what I got wrong for me this week. It was right there. I mean, a lot of you asked me, can I play the Ravens tonight? And I said, I think you can, but they're not my favorite play. So gross, man. I mean, what you saw tonight, I think, is a great example of how out of sorts the quarterback market is in the NFL. Like, I'm not saying that Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson are not worth every penny of their money. They are. Those are the ones that are worth every penny of a $250, $300 million deal. But when you get guys like Tua, like Trevor Lawrence, like Kyler Murray, who are making that kind of money, that's just so silly. And I mean, that's just the way business is, but it's so out of whack, right? Like, it's just so out of whack that a quarterback like Tua can almost make the same amount of money as Lamar Jackson. I mean, Tua is so out of his league playing against most defenses in the NFL. And again, this was the Ravens defense coming out party. So, like, maybe I'll feel better about ranking the Ravens defense moving forward in my top 12 because, I mean, they came up with big plays tonight. They came up with interceptions, splash plays. They got a couple sacks. So, I mean, they were definitely in play, like I said, in my top 15 this week, but they were not my top 12. And obviously that was a huge oversight. And I totally overestimated the value of what the Dolphins, and particularly what Tua would do tonight. So Tua was atrocious. I mean, that's like over 2 on him in Thursday night games this year. They've been, I mean, the Dolphins, again, they're just a disaster. They're in a complete disaster zone. And Tua moving forward, like, it's very hard for me to be able to consider him a streaming option after a really good matchup at home against a defense that's been getting abused for the most of the season. Not good. Tua is a disaster, and I apologize because I told some people to play guys like, I told some people to play Tua. Not too many, fortunately, but for those who I did tell to play, I am very sorry because that was awful. Devon Achane remains matchup proof. Devon Achane, I think the thing is, like, obviously, take solace knowing this is a floor game for Devon Achane because 4.8 on the ground in a blowout, pretty good stuff. 67 yards, and you also had a massive receiving night, 6 catches for 39 yards. Like, that's why I was saying this to somebody earlier, Achane is so matchup proof because of that receiving upside. And a lot of times, man, I mean, we've seen it several times this year already. The Dolphins are going to continue to get blown out by teams. I don't care if they keep McDaniel or if they fire him. They're going to get blown out. And guess what? Achane's still going to give you a 14-point floor minimum, and in full PPR leagues, probably around 16 points. Because this guy just doesn't have any game where he's not getting at least 6 targets. He's just too important. Like, he is the check down master, and Tua loves himself a check down. So Achane, he's going to have better games, but if he doesn't have many more like massive upside games, it's okay because you're still never going to get destroyed by having Achane in your lineup because he's just too important to the offense and too important to his mental health, knowing that he has a guy like Achane out of the backfield that he can rely on and just check the ball down to. So yeah, Jalen Waddle salvages the night, man. I was really encouraged by Jalen Waddle earlier in the night because the first play, I mean, he had like a 20-yard catch over the middle of the field, and I was like, oh, nice play. Tua looked good. Jalen Waddle looked good. Like maybe they're going to move the ball. For a while, we didn't see Jalen Waddle again, and then he, just started to kind of rack up more and more yardage and more catches as the game went on. I thought that it was, and again, this isn't a bad play either. Like this is a 14-point night in a full PPR format. That's solid. And what is that? 12-point night in half PPR, solid. Like he's not going to kill you this week. Obviously, it was not the ceiling game that I thought it was going to be, but I think with Waddle, it's similar. It's a poorer man's version of like Achane. I think Waddle relatively is bust proof until they get into bad weather games. And that's why I'm actually trying to sell off Waddle myself, because as the weather starts to get worse throughout this season, and we're about to start seeing it. I mean, I live in Texas. It's been a little chilly over here past couple days. The weather's going to get worse. And then this Dolphins team is going to look worse and worse. And I'm trying to sell off basically every asset of the Dolphins except for Achane, which, I mean, that would basically mean only Waddle because he's the only one outside of Achane that's really worth rostering. Greg Dulcich actually was the tight end for that team, not Tanner Connor. So, ho-hum, I guess. I mean, take what you will from that. He just is, again, no offensive piece is really worth having at this point outside of Waddle. Malik Washington, he had a couple big plays. I will give him that. And I do appreciate the fact that he's kind of developed a role as like a gadget type of player. But again, I still stick with my tone of Malik Washington, which is I don't think he's really a playable guy. And for that reason, like, what's the point of rostering somebody, even in a deeper league, where you don't feel like you can have a chance to play them? Like, a lot of times, like, a guy like Tyjae Spears, for example, he's on a bad team, but there's, like, a legitimate chance that he could become a lead back in Tennessee and therefore have more upside in fantasy. With Malik Washington, it's like, even if you're the wide receiver too, behind Waddle, you're playing with Tua. So, like, you're just never going to get that many downfield targets because that's not his game. Like, Tua is a short yardage type of guy because Tua doesn't have a big arm. I mean, that's the reality is, like, all the years that Tyreek Hill did really well, that was because he was a Hall of Fame talent. But, I mean, if you remember watching, like, just watch some highlights of Tyreek Hill in Miami versus Kansas City. Every deep throw he got in Kansas City, Mahomes was leading him down the field 50 to 60 yards. Tua, every deep throw, he had to slow down for. Well, why is that? Because Tua's arm is weak. So that's my problem with Malik Washington is that he's just playing with a quarterback who's got a weak arm and therefore is never going to be a real legitimate downfield threat. So I feel pretty much the same about him. Nick Westbrook-Ikine is completely undesirable. I drafted him a couple times in best ball. Wish I didn't because it was just a wasted pick. And then you got a whole bunch of garbage, man. Before I end the night and before I get to the super chats that I have, appreciate y'all waiting. But Ravens defense again, guys. I apologize. I told people tonight, like, the Ravens defense is playable. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're a playable defense. They're in my top 15. And I think they are able to be played, but I'm not putting my confidence behind them because of how bad they've been this year. And it's a Thursday night game. Well, I mean, it just goes to show at this point in the year, I think what my mindset needs to adjust to is we're at the midway point of the NFL season, meaning that a lot of these teams, now the Dolphins, have 7 losses. And these 6, 7-loss teams, they're checking out already. Like, they're already 1, 2, 3, Cancun. Like, let's go to Cancun. Let's all enjoy our offseason. I'll see you guys next August, right? That's what the Dolphins are at. And so when you've got a team like the Ravens getting Lamar back, they're fired up, they're ready to go on this win streak, it makes logical sense to play that defense, and that's where I was wrong. So, wrong on Tua tonight, wrong on the Ravens defense. That's nearly what I got right and wrong. We just moved it up to Thursday night post game. So that was the breakdown of that lousy game tonight. Appreciate y'all being here, and we'll get to the super chats that I have, and then we'll take a breather and end the night. Adrian, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate your patience. I knew it. I trusted the gut. Ravens defense. That's why I tell you guys, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Trust your gut is the most important message I can give. Because a lot of these times, guys, I'm wrong. That's why I've got a segment on what I got right and wrong. But I am right. So we got to be fair to both sides. I'm not going to be one of these creators who never acknowledges when they're wrong. I was wrong about the Ravens, and I'm wrong every week, multiple times a week. So, I want everyone who watches me to go with their gut. If you disagree with me to the point where you're like, dude, I am not, I do not see your point of view, and I don't see what's wrong with this play, so I'm going to do it. I encourage you to do it, because a lot of times when I have the audience building a consensus against me and say, you're wrong about this ranking, you guys are right, historically. Over the years I've been doing this, you guys are usually right when you build a consensus against me. And tonight was a perfect example. Tua was not a good play, and the Ravens defense was a very good play. So, congratulations, Adrian. And I'm glad that you played the Ravens defense. Appreciate the super chat. Alias, appreciate the super chat. Working, couldn't catch the game. Could I trade away either McBride and Njoku or Likely for an upgrade at another position? Or if I got rid of McBride, can I still can't trust Likely for fantasy? First of all, yeah, you didn't miss much of this game tonight. I mean, that was not a game. That was a disaster. It was a complete disgrace. You watch one team disgraced and another team that's literally gonna win the AFC North. Could you trade away either McBride and Njoku or Likely? Well, if you want a real upgrade, and I'm talking about a real upgrade at a different position, the only guy who's going to get you that is McBride. So it just comes down to how willing are you to do that. Because McBride can get you a legitimate RB2, like high-end RB2 or high-end wide receiver 2, or even a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2. I mean, that's but then you look at Njoku or Likely, I mean, those guys are going to get you borderline flex / depth players. That's the reality is if the question was, could I trade one of these tight ends for bench, for depth or for flex options, then I would say, yeah, you could trade Njoku or you could trade Likely off a bigger game and the hope that he comes back and has big games. You could do that and maybe try to get a Wan'Dale Robinson or a Kayshon Boutte or a Stephon Diggs or someone like that. But if you really want to make a positional upgrade, the only guy who's going to do that for you is Trey McBride. And I think that if you got rid of McBride, that Likely is going to be the higher upside play. But this is one of those cases where I would say hold the two tight ends, because Njoku is going to have some games where he will do well in fantasy, and he's also going to have games where he doesn't hit his ceiling because, I mean, he's sharing work with Harold Fannin until someone says otherwise, right? So, and Likely is obviously sharing work with Andrews, but his ceiling is really high because they have two different types of skill sets, and they serve two different purposes in the Ravens offense. So, I think the way I look at fantasy a lot of times is I oftentimes am not a huge fan of drafting tight end early. And so when you have a player like McBride, who's very good, but I don't think is a true separator. Nobody has matched what Kelsey used to do with the Chiefs when he was in his prime. I mean, Kelsey was a true queen on the chessboard. He was a game changer in fantasy. And, McBride is good, but he's not that. McBride is good, but I would personally be willing to do it and try to get, again, a Derrick Henry, a Kyron Williams, a Cortland Sutton, a Michael Pittman, Rasheed Rice, maybe. Like that's personally what I would try to do, and I would just try to roll with those two tight ends and play my luck because I have a league where I had Pitts as my starting tight end. Like people when I did that at the beginning of the year, they thought I was crazy. Well, it's turning out okay because I maximized the other positions earlier in the draft and I waited to get Pitts. So I'm always pretty comfortable with streaming tight ends because I feel like I've got matchups down in certain circumstances. So that's like, if it was my team, I would do that because that's the only way that you'll make a true upgrade. Appreciate the super chat, and we'll go ahead and end it off for there tonight. So, love you guys. I appreciate y'all being in here. And yeah, go sign up for FS Roundup. If you've got questions tonight and you want them answered, go start some polls on fsroundup.com. Completely free to start polls, completely free to vote on polls, and to get access to my top 250 rankings on a weekly basis. There's a link there to go to fsroundup.com. And you'll also get the waiver wire tool and many other features. So appreciate you guys. Love y'all. See y'all tomorrow.